Are we live? Hi,
Yes.
everyone.
Yes,
Hi,
we're live.
Hello,
welcome.
everybody.
Yeah, hi. Another pop-up Q&A, pop-up career Q&A session, which we're having again every Thursday at 12:30 right now. So welcome. It's streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So yeah, this is where we kind of answer any of your career-related questions live. So if you have a question, just ask it down in the comments. But also, just say hi so we know you're there, right?
Yep. Hello.
Hello. So
Hi,
Teams with
everyone.
us.
Can you hear us loud and clear?
Yes, it's super clear.
Yep. I think everyone.
You can also host a watch party on Facebook if you want your other friends to benefit from this. So to kind of kickstart, I think we have we've got some questions prepared, but we prefer to answer your questions if you want to ask in the comments below.
Yeah.
Right.
Hello. Hi, Kyrie, Ali, Okogu, Zihao. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome.
All right. So why don't we just get started with the questions?
All right.
We have some.
So we'll pick from what was asked previously first. So the first one was, why do employers even ask for expected salary? So the whole question is, what is the purpose of the interviewer when asking about expected salary? When we give an amount and they say, oh, actually the maximum we can give is just this amount. It seems like a really awkward question. So what is your input on why employers even bring this up in the first place if they have a maximum cap or like a set expected salary already?
I think it's a good thing for employers to know, because let's say an employer has a range that they're allowed to offer for a particular role. Let's say 3,000 to 4,000 ringgit a month is what the HR people have as like their rough estimated budget for this role. So if I'm the HR person, I'm interviewing you and I ask for your expected salary and you tell me it's like 5,000, then I know that, first of all, I know that with our budget, we can't match your salary. So if, let's say, there are no other candidates and I need to offer you the job, I know that it's not something that you want, and therefore it's like I will have the knowledge that maybe you won't want to accept this job and maybe you won't be happy in this role because the salary doesn't match your expectation.
I think it's like Shakir is right. It's mostly about just making sure that we don't waste each other's time, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way, a job seeker, when you look for a job, you might also search based on salary, because you wouldn't apply for a job that, let's say, like you couldn't afford taking. I think so. It works both ways. So the employer also wants to interview someone where they know they can afford to hire if they think that you're actually suitable for the role. So it's for
on the other side, like I gave the example of someone whose expectation was too high, but on the other side, like let's say the budget is 3,000 to 4,000, and I asked for your expected salary, and you gave the answer like 2,005, then me as an employer, I'm like, all right.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is like I guess in a job, right? It's always like a negotiation in some sense. Like for a job seeker, you would always want the optimum salary for yourself, and the employer, who's obviously conscious about their cost, would want to kind of most employers that are not all, right, they will try to offer the least that they can get, they can offer you. But I think that mindset is changing a little bit. Like employers right now are thinking more or less about paying what's fair, because they also don't want, if you underpay someone and then your employees start to leave, then that's also a long-term problem. But having said that, you can't assume that the employer will think like this. So it's better for negotiation purposes to try to see if you can negotiate higher.
Yeah, but generally the answer, like for why employers even ask for expected salary, is so that we kind of know where you stand on what you expect and what you think your value is. And then maybe if you are expecting higher than what the employer was initially thinking of paying, you can justify it with why you think you're worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So don't just put a number out of thin air. It's a negotiation. Sometimes I think it helps if you really understand what the market rate is, what your value is, what your experience is, and also if you can justify certain costs involved of you working with the company. I'm sure employers will be able to see from your point of view why you even asked for that amount in the first place, and not just, like I said, pulling a magic number out of a hat.
Yeah.
Right?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any input on that, Kenny?
I mean, in my opinion, it's also the employer's way of starting a conversation with you. Like, if they really like you, they want to understand like what you need. Like, your expectation is definitely it should reflect your needs, like your budget, your living expenses. So if they really like you, they want to know what you're expecting, and they want to make sure that you're happy. So I guess that's why they want to ask a conversation. It's to start a conversation about salary, which can be awkward. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next question.
Next question would be, how can a foreigner get a job here in Malaysia?
Oh yeah. Oh, so before I carry on, just so you guys know, if you're watching this from Facebook, on LinkedIn, or YouTube, you can actually ask a question in the comments, and we just pick it up and we answer it live. A career-related question. So, how can a foreigner get a job here? Well, honestly, like in Malaysia, getting a visa is not as straightforward as, say, in certain other countries, right? There's more open to like foreign talent. But having said that, I do know a lot of foreign talent that have jobs, but it's mostly technical, right? Technical jobs where they need like highly skilled talent that is in short supply locally. So it could be, I mean, the obvious one would be like a software developer, like tech is a very big thing right now, or it could be like an engineer. So those roles, an employer, because you have to think of it in this sense, right? So the employer, if they hire a local person, they don't have to go through the process of applying for a visa. It's much more straightforward. So for a foreign person to look for a job here, like the value that you bring to the company has to be worth that risk and effort to the employer. And therefore, in most cases, they would then just focus mainly on the positions that are difficult to fill locally, right?
Yep.
So that's the situation right now.
Yeah, or for more senior roles, if you already have many years of experience in a role, then you have higher chances lah. But if it's a matter of like quite a common fresh grad job where lots of Malaysian fresh grads are also applying, yeah, it's just simply easier for the company to consider local talent because they don't need to take any extra steps lah. Yeah.
In terms of things you can do to increase your chances, firstly, I would say apply to bigger multinational companies because they have a bigger team and they are multinational. They have teams and people from other places and they are able to sponsor a visa. They have more resources. So that you will have a higher chances of landing a job there rather than a small startup or
But also do internships because most internships you don't need a visa. So if you manage to get an internship in your like dream company and you really show them during your internship that you bring a lot of value to the company, then they might be willing to take the extra steps to make you a full-timer and get you that work visa.
Yeah,
definitely.
Also definitely
so one
really
of the things, one of the things I would say is even if like the role that you could be actually in a career where maybe it's not in short supply in Malaysia, right? And therefore it's always going to be really tough to find a job in Malaysia if you're a foreigner. But having said that, I think Shakira brought up good part of internships. Even if you do have to kind of go back to your home country, getting the experience abroad is very useful, right? So you should intern anyway. Even though you may not think they offer you a full-time job at the end, because just having that work experience in Malaysia and you go back to wherever you're from makes a huge difference rather than just graduating from university. Because anyone, you have money, you put in some effort, you can graduate with a degree, but not everyone can get the experience working here, right? And then going back, home. So Yeah, just a small point to add on to that, because I think when a lot of foreign talent actually ask questions like this to me, I find that most of them are not in tech or like an engineer, which is the main reason why you're asking this question in the first place. Because if you're in tech, you probably already know that you can get hired, right? If you're already in tech, your employer probably already approached you. So this is for those who are not in tech.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a bunch of questions coming in.
Oh, we have.
Yeah. The next one is Norhani, I think, added on to our first question about salary, employers in salary, right? Would it not just be easier if employers state the salary for the position in the job posting straight away? Job seekers would know if they're comfortable with the salary, and employers can straight away state their range and budget that they have to hire.
Well, I think sometimes employers don't put salary immediately on the job description because they want to know that you're interested in it for more than the money. I know that money is important to everyone, of course, but employers want to know that you care about their mission, that you care about, that you share their values, and that you really want to provide some real value to the company. And so I guess they want to focus more on those things if they don't put the salary in the description itself. Sometimes their budget is very high. Like their budget could be like 10,000 a month or something. So then they would automatically, by putting that up, get a lot of applications from people who are not interested in the job or company at all, but they're just interested in the salary. So that's why a lot of companies don't put the salary up there.
Yeah, from my knowledge as well, yes, that's one factor what Shakira said. But also, let's say if they put a salary, they have a range of how much they want to pay. They have a budget, right? And let's say they put a salary, for example, that is lower than what some people wanted, they will just skip the job right away. However, if they don't put it there, someone will go for an interview and they're able to showcase that they are a very good quality candidate. And rather than what the employer initially wanted to pay for the position, they might even be willing to give a higher salary just to acquire this candidate. So if they list the salary that is lower than what the quality talent really wanted, then they might just miss the opportunity. So that's why most of them just want to focus on showcasing their company, showcasing what the job is about to attract the right people whose intention is right in not just joining for the high salary.
Yeah, and a fair employer will offer you a fair wage for your value and your experience, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it actually comes down to like not closing doors too soon. So it's like it works both ways. Like, right, the employer wants to know your expected salary, but at the same time, if you review your expected salary, then you might limit, the negotiation. So as an example, if you say your expected salary is 5,000 and the employer thinks they only want to pay 4,000 for this role and they haven't interviewed you yet, they might say, let's not interview this person because we only want to pay 4,000. Even though in reality they could have offered 5,000. So if you start the conversation with the number, you actually kind of close doors. So it works the other way around, right? So if the employer reviews their salary range and say, we can only offer 5,000, and what you want is 6,000, let's say, and you decide not to apply to the job, when actually maybe if you interview, you could have liked the job, they could have offered you 5,500, for example, you would have taken it, but because the conversation just stopped on that number, it's not ideal. So there are pros and cons to both, I think. So sometimes it depends on the philosophy the employer has when it comes to recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Should we take another question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this question, how long does it take for an employer to give feedback to an employee after attending the interview is considered appropriate? How long does an employer get back to an interviewee, right?
It's quite subjective, right? Depends on the employer.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like as soon as they know that. Right? And so what I mean is like, say after I interview this person, if your internal process is you have to discuss with the different hiring managers, your HR, before making a decision, and this whole thing takes 1 or 2 weeks, then as soon as this 1 or 2 weeks you've done all the paperwork, then you let them know that. If you after the interview immediately whether or not you want to hire this person, then you should let them know as soon as you already know, right? So I think it's kind of as simple as that. So what you don't want is a situation where, let's say, if I interview someone and I already know that we're not going to hire this person, but we wait 2 weeks to tell them they've been rejected, then that's there's no point to it. You might as well just let them know.
Yeah. Also, I think you can expect slightly longer timelines depending on how big the company is. So very big corporates will have SOPs to go through when hiring someone. So you can expect that it will take a couple of weeks to hear back from them because they have to, get approval from maybe different people. Approval from the CEO might take some time. So the bigger the company, I think the longer the timeline.
Yes, and you have to take into account of the fact that they might also be interviewing other people, and so after they interview you and maybe have more interviews lined up, say 2 weeks from now, and after these 2 weeks, another week to decide, another 1 or 2 weeks, so it could take a while, right? So a good question you could ask an employer is that question, right? If you like, at the end of the interview, just ask, what's your process? What would typically happen after this interview? When will I know? Right. So I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
And I think, this is not a foolproof, this is not 100%, but you can sort of tell if an employer is very interested in hiring you. They would keep in contact with you, even though they can only give you the answer a bit later. They'll keep you informed. They'll let you know. They won't let you ghost you for 2 weeks and then suddenly come back. If they do contact you again after a very long period of time, that could mean that actually, you weren't their first choice or something like that. But it depends on the situation as well.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Fair point, actually. Right. So that even as when I was actually doing recruitment, we actually train to keep in contact with a candidate or job seeker when there isn't an answer yet. So it's not a yes or a no. Just to keep the relationship warm. So then you're still in the running, if you like. Whereas if it turns cold, then it's a sign. But again, sometimes it turns cold because the process isn't quite there, not because that they're not interested in you. So it depends.
All right. Moving on to the next one. Someone's curious about how much are interns usually being paid and how is it usually being calculated in terms of what is being paid to interns. I think a lot of people might not understand that what interns are usually being paid is allowances, not salary. And some internships are not even paid at all. From my personal experience, and again, this is entirely dependent on what companies want to pay, right? Some pay nothing, some pay 500, some pay about around near 1,000, and I've even heard some that pay about 1,500. But these are all allowances. So when you're an intern, you're technically not a employee of the company, so to say. So there is no minimum wage that is being applied to your allowance.
There's no minimum wage, but I would say it's quite safe to say that the average is 500. That's based on my knowledge on the industry and what I see people offering. The average for an internship is usually about 500 a month. But like Brian said, it's an allowance.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to internship, definitely. Even for jobs, I usually tell people don't focus so much on the short-term money, think long-term. But this is even more true for the internship. Unless based on the allowance, you completely can't take up this job. Maybe you can't travel there or something. Unless it's the case, if you're working with a company that you think the experience will be so amazing and there's such a great career ahead, and they only want to pay you very little in allowance compared to another company who wants to pay you a much higher allowance, but you don't think the career is going to be that amazing, always pick the one where you think has a more potential for a good career. Don't look at the short-term money.
I think if you're thinking of earning money, an internship really isn't the thing for you. An internship is meant to be a learning experience. So money or allowances should be the least of your expectation. You should be focusing on what you can learn, the experience you can get, and stuff like that. Because internships are more of a stepping stone instead of a money-making option or experience.
True.
Yeah. Just sharing my experience there. So of course, when I went for internship, I had my whole circle of friends going to different companies. Some of them are getting paid nothing at all. But when you ask like what did they learn, they actually learned a lot of things. I think going by, we talk about salary closely related, right? Is that some companies, they really want to focus on people who actually want the internship experience. And not to attract people just by a high allowance. So this particular company paid nothing, but it got a lot out of it. Another one of my friend during the internship got about like 1,800 per month for an internship, which is very, very high.
Very high.
That's very high.
Yeah. But when asked, what do you actually do day to day, it's very, they don't really even work for the company. The boss had the mother needed to go to the clinic, the car needed to be washed, and they had to do all of these things. And that's not going to look great for your CV at all. The funny thing is we had to write a report. So you can imagine how much of a nightmare you had about what you were doing for the company during the whole internship. So definitely don't pick it based on the allowance amount, Right.
Yep.
Shall we move on to the
let's take
next one?
Another question.
Okay.
I see a pretty interesting question. Okay, never mind. I will answer this one first, then I'll pick your name.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you describe what does entry-level position mean in your opinion?
A fresh graduate, right?
Yeah, fresh
someone
graduate.
that's just someone with like zero experience, excluding your internship experience, like no full-time work experience yet. So that is what the entry-level position is.
Yeah.
All right, done. Boom.
Done. Okay. I pick. Yeah.
What's the one that you saw?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we have another like 10 minutes or so left. So if anyone you have any questions, just ask in the comments below and we'll answer it live.
Brian, Topet Hidayat's question. I can't select it.
Read it out first. Oh yeah, okay. I found it.
Yeah. All right. All right. So I'd like to change my career, but still within the same creative area. But I don't have enough portfolio to show, even though I know I can do the work. How do I convince employers to hire me? And I like this question because the answer is very easy. I can tell you. You create the work.
Yeah.
So that's the answer. You don't have work to show. Okay, make it. Just come up with some ideas. Like if you're talking creative, so maybe it's graphic design. Think about I'm gonna do a sample event poster. I'm gonna do a sample social media campaign image. I'm gonna do a sample promotion poster. Stuff like that. Just show your range, lah. Especially if you're a creative person, which means that you can do it at home on your computer with the tools you have. Then there's no excuse, lah.
100%. In fact, there are lots of different kind of jobs where you can actually do this. I remember hiring one of our first software developers in WOBB, and when I interviewed him, he was also a fresh graduate with haven't actually worked before. And I said, what do you know how to do? And he actually showed me like apps or websites that he's been building for fun, out of interest, just to be able to also showcase his ability at the time. So it wasn't done, so he wasn't paid to do it, but it showed as an example, right, of his portfolio. So you can create a portfolio. You don't have to wait for someone to pay you to build a portfolio, right? So it's up to you.
And it shows like genuine interest in it.
Yeah. And let's say that the role, so taking this like a bit higher, like let's say you're not like a creative person, you're not a software developer. So your work you don't really have a way to show your work, to show your projects. You can actually show your thought process. Let's say it's for marketing. Marketing is all about getting brand awareness, getting people to know your brand, getting people to love your brand. So there were times when I was interviewing fresh grads, so they didn't have any work experience, but they would talk about other brands' existing campaigns and what they would have done differently. And that showed me that they really are passionate about marketing. They're thinking about ways to do it themselves. And even if the idea is maybe not as refined because they don't have experience, they don't know the reality behind it, but showing that sort of interest and that willingness to try and that willingness to learn is a really good thing when you're in an interview. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good. Let's pick it up. Let's try to squeeze in another two more questions.
Yeah.
Do you have time for one more? Okay, let's see.
how do you see yourself in 5 years? What are employers specifically looking for in a candidate when asking this?
That's a very good question, Jess.
There's like two portions to this. One, to see like where you're headed and whether or not you fit in the company. And the second one is also like, it's to see like, do you plan to stay long, or are you a short-term employee kind of thing? So it's to gauge sort of both lah. Yeah.
It could be that the employer wants to see if your ambitions are aligned with your job application. Just to give like real life examples, WOBB is a tech company where we're in the HR industry, the job industry. So when I asked a candidate like where do you see yourself in 5 years, and the answer is I want to do something in fashion, I want to be like a designer or something like that, then I know that their path isn't their joining WOBB would not be the path for them to get where they want to go. So there's like a misalignment in their application at WOBB and what they actually want. And then, we take the conversation from there lah. But basically the question shows the employer whether or not you and the employer and the job that you're applying for is aligned for the long term.
Yeah, and I think it's a very, very old interview question, but I think it's about that long-term alignment, right? Like and also your mindset lah. I still ask this question right now more because I'm very curious about the mindset of the person, how they look at their career, or whether they give like a really boring answer or not. But to the point of like employers wanting to see whether you're long-term with them, I literally just read a quote this morning from this person that I follow. I have it up here. So Ray Dalio, right? So it's a very famous, I think one of the most successful people in the world. So he writes a principle every day, and he wrote this morning: don't hire people just to fit the first job they will do. Hire people you want to share your life with. That kind of struck a chord when I read it. So don't hire people just to fit the first job they will do. Hire people you want to share your life with. So basically what they say, what it means is that when an employer wants to hire someone, right, they're literally like they're welcoming you into their home in some sense, like into their family or their sports team, whatever analogy you want to use that. And they want someone that they can see themselves literally running this marathon with together. So and if the reverse is true, I think the reverse for even a job seeker, or if you're looking for a job, like, I know in these days people tend to change jobs a bit more often, but at the point you want to join the company, if you're already thinking, when am I going to leave? That's a bad sign, When as soon as you join, that's the first thought. I will be here 3 years, on day one. Then that's not a good sign. Like you should go in thinking, if I can, I want to be here like forever. Right? I mean, as long as you're still growing and all that, obviously. So I just thought I'd share this quote because I literally just read it this morning.
No employers would want to, hire a candidate and then train them for like 3 months or whatever ongoing, and then the person just leaves the company. Then they have to restart the whole process again.
Yeah. Obviously things change, like let's say you join a company, you really do intend to stay there for like the long term, but things happen along the way, they change, another opportunity presents itself, or the company change direction, then it's fair obviously to look for another opportunity. But at the point of application, you shouldn't already be thinking about the end date lah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's a bad sign if you're really thinking like this. Yeah.
So some are actually like asking you this question to see your career goal, your path, what you're working towards, what are your steps, and what kind of steps are you taking to make sure that your career path is is achievable by whatever standard that you think you're aiming for, right? So do we have time for one more?
I'm not sure. We'll squeeze in one lah.
One
last one.
So Liu Xiaopui asks, given that the pandemic causes a lot of people losing jobs, how shall a fresh graduate increase the likelihood to get a job, since we need to compete against a lot of people who are more experienced?
I think we have been asked this question before, I think in different ways. So the straightforward answer is do internships, plenty of internships. Even if you already graduated and you don't need to do an internship like a compulsory one, do it anyway. If you can't find a full-time job, because you need to get actual experience to be competitive, right? Yeah. And all the usual job seeking advice applies, like write a good CV. It sounds silly that I'm even offering this advice, but like I said many times before, there is so much information about how to write a good CV, and yet I still see bad CVs all the time. I just don't understand. You can just Google how to write a good CV. You probably get 1,000 articles and still get bad CVs. So just cover the basics, and a bit of a self-promo bit. So in WOBB currently, we also do like video cover letters. So before you apply to a company, you can upload like a 30-second video of yourself, and all this is to help you stand out. So an employer, because here's the challenge, right? If you're a fresh graduate, you don't have a lot of work experience to fall back on. So an employer is going to have to make a decision based on your attitude, right? Like who you are as a person. And because of that, like a video cover letter might make the difference between you being invited to an interview or not. So like try different things to help yourself stand out.
Yeah, speaking of the video cover letter, I would like highly recommend it as well, because if you think about it this way, like an employer needs to know you, like your personality and your attitude, before they can make a decision. And usually the only opportunity that you have to show yourself is in an actual interview. But on WOBB, if you use our video cover letter, which is like you just record yourself 30 seconds talking about yourself, you already have the opportunity to show like all the employers that you apply for your personality before you even walk through the door, before they even press that shortlist button. You're already showing them yourself. So definitely take those opportunities.
Yeah, there's really nothing too extra. Like having a CV, having a decent CV, right, or a good CV is not even special anymore. It's the bare minimum. All this other extra opportunity where you have to learn so much more about the company. You write cover letters about generic cover letters, that you can find online. It's not enough anymore. You have to go deep dive, learn more about the company other than just the About Us section. You need to keep yourself updated on what the company is currently doing, their current strategy, how is it being affected after the COVID-19 strategy, so you can write a proper cover letter on how you would like to contribute to the current organizational goal. So that's very special that some other people might not be doing. So having a good CV is really just not enough anymore.
But it's the bare minimum.
It's the bare minimum, So if you can't do that, it's a huge problem.
That's really a lot of things that you can do, and I don't think we can give you an advice on what to do in like just this session. So I'm going to take this opportunity to plug. If you are a fresh graduate and you want to learn about what to do and stuff like that, you can follow us everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, even TikTok. We are actually producing a lot of contents that are meant to help job seekers perform better, or even look for a better job, and how to prepare your CVs. So if you want tips, you can always find us everywhere on social media at WOBB Jobs.
Yeah. In addition, we've actually created a community for people to actually ask for advice. So for those people that ask questions that we didn't have time to answer today, I really hope that you guys can visit our community called OFFWERK. So OFFWERK. Just search for it on Facebook and you'll find our group where you can write your question and post it directly in the group. And there's a lot of mentors and peers that will give their advice and opinions, share their advice and opinions with you. So it won't even be just people from WOBB that's giving you advice, but people from different companies, and probably your peers who have gone through something similar can also share their advice. So I hope that you guys join us there. Kenny, are we going to be there for the next half an hour?
Yes, we'll be there for half an hour to answer your questions. So join us and we'll approve your post, and we'll see you there.
Okay.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for being here. I hope if you enjoyed it, like if you want us to keep doing this, give us a like so we know that you're there, even though you don't actually have a question to ask, or share it as well. Or if you have any feedback, even though the live session is over, you have any feedback for us how we can be more interesting or add more value to you, you can also ask it in the comments, right? And we'll pick it up. All right. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next week.
See you at OFFWERK.
See you in OFFWERK.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, is it still live?
It's taking a while to